NFL Talk with Elite Wagers.
Yo, what's happening, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of NFL Talk of Elite Wagers. This is actually the penultimate episode of the NFL season. We've only got one more weekend after this one, and that'll be Super Bowl weekend. It's obviously the Conference Championship Sunday this week. We now know our championship matchups. For the AFC, we've got the Bills visiting the Chiefs, and then the Commanders visiting the Eagles in the NFC. Obviously, both should be very, very interesting games, and I'm looking forward to them both a lot. I am going to start this with a bit of a downer on recapping last week's results. We didn't do too well. We had a lot of bad beats. Actually went 3-5, I believe, 3-4 with a loss. We had some bad beats in, especially the Ravens game. Obviously, that Mark Andrews no catch for the tie. That obviously hurt us a lot. Samuel as well, over 11.5 receiving yards in that same game. Would have actually cashed, wasn't it, for a offensive hold. So that got wiped off the board as well. So a few little bad beats there. Another losing weekend, but again, we're on to Conference Championship weekend, which means we've still got time to redeem ourselves from these two bad beats. At this stage of the season, we pretty much know a lot about these four teams. We also know that they're going to approach this game as a win or go home, which is essentially what it is. Three of these four teams have already played two games in the playoffs already. The Eagles, obviously, a very run-heavy offense, and it's been the bulk of their production. It's not going to surprise me to see them continue with that in this game. The Commanders' offense, they've been high-flying all season long. Obviously, Jaden Daniels has given the Commanders a new style, a new look on offense. It's given the opposing defenses new things to think about as well. The Bills, they're now officially a two-dimensional team as well. Josh Allen being able to throw the ball and use his legs quite often, along with James Cook as well being a solid running back. Although their run game isn't the best in the league, it definitely does do a very, very good job of called upon. I think they are sneaking into the top 10 now in sort of rushing yards and things like that. So onto the Chiefs are the final of the four teams, and let's not get into the slander and the hate side of things. A lot of people are saying they shouldn't be, obviously due to all the bad calls and things like that. But taking those out with the game, it's the Chiefs, and Patrick Mahomes historically is one of the best quarterbacks we've seen in a number of years, especially in the playoffs. And obviously the same could be said for Travis Kelce too. So they're both very, very good players in general, but they find another gear in the playoffs. We'll take out the no calls and the unusual calls that they got, the easy bounces and things like that. We'll take that out of the equation for the Chiefs for now. All four teams have essentially done what they've needed to do to get this far. But the question is, who has what it takes to make it to New Orleans to fight for the Super Bowl? But before I get into my breakdowns for those two games, I am going to start off this episode by mentioning I do have a 5-unit play. It's the biggest wager of the season for me, which will be on the two games this weekend. I'm going to be giving hints as to what it is throughout this episode, but if you do want to unlock the play, you need to like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on, and comment POD, and I'll send it over. It's literally that simple. So like on whatever platform you're listening to, comment POD, and I'll send you the 5-unit play. So we're going to get into this, and we're going to start in sort of time order. The earlier game of the two is the NFC Championship game. The Commanders will visit the Philadelphia Eagles. Headed into the postseason, the hype for the NFC, teams were the NFC North teams. They actually combined for 40 wins during the regular season between the Lions, the Packers, and the Vikings. But ultimately, they couldn't make them count. All three teams lost their playoff games, and they actually went 0-3 as a division. Instead, we have a battle between two NFC East rivals who, during the regular season, both took a game each in their head-to-heads. Both teams have been offensively dominant during the season. It's a huge reason why both teams are here. I think the regular season stats tend to sort of go out the window at this stage. We already, we've had a few top teams already been eliminated, as we saw last week with the Ravens. Obviously the Lions, they're two examples. They've already been eliminated despite being the best teams in the league, all season. We know the Eagles are going to rely heavily on their best offensive attribute, which is Saquon Barkley, and their running game. But the Commanders have got a run game of their own, and they actually rank one place behind the Eagles and third for rushing yards per game. Interestingly, 4 of the top 6 rushing teams this season have been eliminated during the playoffs already. Another one will be sent home in this game too, as the final 2 of the top 6 are facing each other in this game. In the opening 2 games, the Eagles won 22-10 against the Packers and 28-22 against the Rams. In my opinion, they didn't look like the best team in football in either of those 2 wins. In that Packers game, the scoreline suggested it was a dominant game from the Eagles, but that's actually not the case. The Packers outgained the Eagles 302-290. They had a better first down conversion rate, and they went 7-13 on third down conversions, while the Eagles only went 2-11. The huge difference in this game was, the Packers' turnovers. They had 4 turnovers, but the Eagles allowed the Packers to stay in the game the whole time. It has to be said the Packers did play really, really bad in that game, and they gave the Eagles numerous opportunities to run away with that game. As I said, the Packers, they had 4 turnovers, but the Eagles didn't take advantage of those turnovers either. They scored 7 of a potential 28 points from turnovers. The Eagles winning that game 22-10 would be a disappointment considering how bad the Packers actually played, and statistically, the Eagles played worse. A similar story was told in the win against the Rams. The Rams outgained Philly 402-350. Again, they allowed more first downs than they themselves gained. The difference in this game was, again, the turnovers. The Rams gave up, 2, so they fumbled the ball twice, and the Eagles only actually cashed in 6 points of a potential 14, which would have made this a lot more comfortable win. The Eagles almost collapsed late in that game as well. The Rams scored, a 2-minute drive touchdown, forced a quick 3 and out, and then they had the opportunity then to go down the field and score another touchdown. And it was a really, really good drive as well. They got down to the Philly 9-yard line, and that was when Jalen Carter, he sacked Matt Stafford and essentially iced the game for Philly. So the message I'm sending in this game is maybe the Eagles' offense isn't really that good, and it definitely might not be that dominant as stats show. Hurts has thrown for under 150 passing yards in 6 of his last 8 games. You can only ride Barkley for so long. It seems the Eagles' defense has given them chances to stay in their games. They forced 6 turnovers in their 2 playoff games, but they've actually only scored 1 touchdown from those 6 turnovers. They come up with crucial sacks. They've got 9 in their first 2 playoff games as well, all while allowing just 10 and 22 points, which is obviously a very good stat to have. But when you're getting stops on defense, you want your offense to go out and score as many points as possible. And scoring 13 of a potential 30 plus is not good enough. The Washington offense is in theory going to be a step up from what they faced in recent weeks. This Washington offense is potentially better than the Packers and the Rams. They averaged the 4th most points per game with 29. They averaged 222 passing yards per game, and they're also 3rd, just 1 place below Philly in rushing yards per game on average with 151. This game knows how to score. They averaged 3.3 touchdowns per game. They've also scored 20 plus points in 15 out of 17 regular season and in both postseason games so far this year. The Commanders showed the league that they aren't a fluke. They actually transitioned those stats into the playoffs. They scored 23 and 45 in their 2 games. But in their 23-20 win against the Bucs, they not only won and scored 23, they outgained the Bucs by 76 yards. They converted more first downs, more third downs, and even fourth downs. They actually went 3 and 5 from fourth down. Against the Lions, they weren't as dominant, but they did a very good job, and they kept up. They obviously scored 45 points, but the Lions outgained the Commanders, and the Commanders, they were able to keep up in all areas of the field. They finished 299 passing yards. The Lions had 320, so just 21 down there. And they finished with 182 rushing yards to the Lions' 201. So again, under 20 rushing yards between them as well. So Daniels was actually a lot more efficient than Jared Goff. The Daniels' O-line kept him safe all night long, allowing 0 sacks, clean pocket, clean passes, and again, a very, very efficient quarterback. Another huge contributing factor in this game was the Commanders' ability to force turnovers. We talked about turnovers for Philly, but the Commanders forced 5 turnovers against the Lions, and it actually resulted in 21 points from turnovers. So as I mentioned, the Eagles were able to get those turnovers but not score points. The Commanders forced 5 and they got 21 points from their turnovers. So that's a very, very big difference in the two. If they can replicate that again against the Eagles, they can be very, very dangerous. I think it's knowledge to everyone by now that Barkley's going to carry the ball a lot, especially with Hurts' knee. He did take a big shot in the Rams game. He had a brace on. He actually got sacked in the end zone for a safety with that brace on because he wasn't as mobile. I think he is questionable, but I expect him to go. He will definitely go. There's no way he's going to miss this game. He may be limited, especially in his running game. If he takes another knock again, he could be down. The Eagles targeted the Rams' run defense in their win last week, as they identified that as their weakest point. Obviously, the Rams ranked 23rd in run defense. The Commanders' run defense is ranking worse than the Rams. So again, I expect them to target that area. Barkley to have 25 plus carries is looking likely as well. He's had that in back-to-back games. He had 29 and 31 to end the season as well. So he's had 4 straight games with over 25 carries. He's actually had back-to-back games against Washington this year as well. But although the Commanders allow 201 rushing yards on average to the Lions last week, they were still able to take them down. So don't define this as a stat which backs the Eagles to win. In addition, the Eagles have the best run defense in the league, and Washington does like to run the ball. They are fairly efficient in doing so as well. But in their first 2 postseason games, they allowed the Packers to run for 107 and the Rams 111, suggesting the run game could be in play for Washington as well. The Eagles actually looked flustered on defense last week. I think that Daniels could cause a lot of problems, a lot more problems than people think. During his last 6 games, which not including Week 18 when he hardly played, Daniels averaged 247 passing yards, 66 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns, and under one interception per game at 0.66. He's actually also yet to throw a pick in the playoffs. Back-to-back games, no picks, and his completion percentage is 72% in those 6 games as well, which is massive. Not surprisingly, he led the Washington offense to putting up a lot of points, averaging 33 points in those 6 games, 29 on the season, getting the win in all 6 games as well in the last 6 games. I believe the Commanders' offense is going to be just too hard to stop. If the Commanders can limit Barkley's production, they may even have a shot to win this game. Although the Eagles have only allowed 22 points and 10 in their 2 games in the playoffs, I think the Commanders will do some damage. I believe they are better than both the Rams and the Packers offense. They've also been able to score on Philly already. I think they scored 35 in their win a couple of weeks ago, 36 in their win a couple of weeks ago. The rest of the league has been in awe of this Commanders offense all year. They've proven they can handle the pressure with the current form of Daniels and his offensive unit. I think it's just too hard not to bet against these guys to succeed. Another key piece for this is Jayden Daniels. He's a key piece to the team, to their success, their scoring, their playmaking, everything. He's just key to all of it. He has elite ability to throw the ball with accuracy. He's a very, very good elite runner. He runs the ball efficiently, which is what makes him so hard to stop. In his rookie year, Daniels has the 6th highest completion percentage with 68% of passes completed. He also found himself with the 7th highest quarterback rating with 102, and that's obviously in his rookie year. The step up to the big time hasn't proven to be something that has unsettled Daniels, and even in his 2 postseason starts, he's played really, really efficiently and effectively. He has tremendous ability to score points for his team, and although he's only thrown 25 touchdowns during the regular season, he has still managed to help the Commanders finish the season as a top 5 offense. Daniels has thrown multiple touchdowns in the game in 8 of 16, so 50%, but he has thrown multiple in his last 5 straight full games. Week 18, he only played 1 quarter, so we're not going to include that. He followed that up by throwing 2 in the playoffs in both of his playoff appearances as well. He threw 5 touchdowns in the most recent win against the Eagles too. So, he's got a bit of consistency there, throwing the ball into the end zone as well, throwing 2 or more in his last 7 games in effect. The Commanders are expected to be behind during this game. I think the line is minus 7 now for the Eagles, so expect them to want to try and dominate that game, meaning the Commanders will need to throw the ball into the end zone to get the ball, to get the points on the board. Again, so Daniels is going to have to use his elite arm, and I think he'll get his team some passing touchdowns. So we've got 3 plays on this one. We've got 1.5 units on the Commanders, team total over 19.5. That's at odds of minus 141. We're going to go half unit on Commanders money line. I'm going to take a shot and think that the Commanders can actually win this game outright. So we're going to go half unit Commanders money line at plus 250. And we're going to go 1 unit on Daniels over 1.5 passing touchdowns at plus 120. So we've got 2 plus money plays in that one. 2.5 units outlaid in this game. And we'll move on to the next game, which is obviously the Bills and the Chiefs. So this game is where we step into the second of the 2, the final game of the 2, and it's going to be the Bills, and they visit the Chiefs at Arrowhead. This game is really, really interesting, and it's equally as difficult to call. It feels like the whole world wants the Bills to take down the Chiefs this weekend, and I can see why. It's obviously a frustrating time to be a fan of the sport where the officiating isn't consistent from team to team. I'm obviously not behind the whole NFL's rigged for Mahomes and the Chiefs, but they're certainly getting a lot of calls, no calls, lucky bounces to go their way, which do look extremely suspicious. So I'm actually going to, I've got it noted down, I'm going to list through some of the calls from last week. So there was a hip drop tackle on Schultz in the first quarter, which was not called last week. That roughing the passer call on 3rd down in the first quarter from Anderson, wrongfully called. That would have resulted in a punt. Obviously, there was a lack of effort blocking Chris Jones on the sack in the second quarter. There was a lack of effort from tackling from 2 defenders in the Kelsey big game before the touchdown in the second quarter as well. He was left wide open. The 2 tackles after that were non-existent. And then there was that unnecessary roughness call on Patrick Mahomes. He didn't slide. There was minimal contact, and that was again on 3rd down to punt in the 3rd quarter. So he would have punted if that would have stood as well. So you got the 3 calls there, which were very, very unlucky. Similar story against the Texans as well. So hopefully we have a bit more better officiating and more fair officiating in this game. But we move on. This week the Chiefs are minus 1.5 favourites in this contest, and with the spread that low, it suggests that the books believe these 2 teams are fairly evenly matched. In the last 3 head-to-heads in the playoffs, the Chiefs have come out victorious, but they weren't walkover games. The last 2 wins for the Chiefs were, one of them was in overtime. The second one was a field goal, and obviously that's another reason for this low spread. It has to be said though that the form from both teams this year looks to be similar. When you look at it on paper and things like that and the records, but the Chiefs have not played well, as their 15-2 record suggests. Potentially the 13-4 Bills have played a lot better football, but as we know, playoff football is completely different. While the Chiefs went 15-2 during the regular season, interestingly enough, the Chiefs are 15-2 over the last 5 seasons in the playoffs, with all 15 of those wins being by more than 2 points. As mentioned, the Bills have lost to the Chiefs in all 3 of their head-to-head games in the playoffs, all by 2 or more points, essentially being eliminated by the Chiefs 3 times on the bounce. Before the season began, I've mentioned it before, but I wasn't high on this Bills team. I didn't expect them to be here, but the more and more I've seen this team play, I believe they do have what it takes to be a Super Bowl contending team, especially now they have a solid running back in James Cook and makes them an official 2-dimensional team. I understand the whole world wants the Bills to take down the Chiefs. I am one of those people too. But from a betting standpoint, I don't see how we go against the Chiefs at this point. They're at home, which is a huge advantage as they're currently riding an 11-home win streak. They have won 17 of the last 20 games at home as well. Coach Reid and Steve Spagnuolo are, another reason why it's hard not to back this team. both are doing an excellent job of putting the team consistently into this position year in, year out. Obviously, have done an even better job given the season they've had this year. They've not had the best season. They've still managed to win 15 games. And obviously, playoff football is different as well. And then finally, it's hard to fade playoff Patrick. He's 16-3 all time. He averages 280 passing yards, 2 touchdowns per game, under half an interception. This whole team just lives for the playoffs, and this is where they come alive. Another example of someone stepping up in the playoffs is Travis Kelce. He's had a very, very mediocre year by his standards, but he had one game. Well, he's only had one game this year actually where he surpassed 100 receiving yards. That was actually last week in his first playoff game. So he went for 117 and a touchdown and 7 receptions, where all year he's had 100 or under. It doesn't matter how good the Bills look or how good they have played. This is just too much to ask to take down this Chiefs team at home. It's hard to deny them a Super Bowl three-peat with some of the things that are going on at the moment for them. So as hard as it is for me to take this bet, I'm actually going to have to roll with the Chiefs. I have came to a conclusion, without mentioning the help from the officials. I've tried to keep this as pretty much as a stat-based thing rather than what could happen from the officials. But while I believe the Chiefs will win this game, I also believe the Bills won't go down without fighting. The Kansas defense has been reasonably solid all season. They rank third for the least points per game on average, averaging 18 to opponents. They've only allowed 7 teams to score 20 or more points actually this year, but one of those teams that did were the Bills, who dropped 30. The Bills' offense has been really, really good this year, averaging 30 points per game, and they've actually scored 30 or more in 13 of 18 games this season. They're now two-dimensional. Gives this Chiefs defense more to think about. Allen's obviously a solid runner. He's got a great arm, which will be hard to defend against. The team total line for the Bills in this one has been set at 22.5, and that's actually a number the Bills have surpassed in 16 of 18 total games. In head-to-heads, they've had 23 or more in 6 of the last 8 matchups since 2020 as well. The Chiefs win this game, I believe, but the Bills will fight. A little side note on this as well. The Chiefs have won between 1 and 6 points in 7 times this season. They've won between 1 and 6 points in 2 out of 3 against the Bills during the playoffs as well. Although I think the Chiefs win this game, I don't think it'll be dominant performance. I believe the Bills can keep up with the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs scraped their way into the Super Bowl. It's obviously common knowledge that they haven't sort of blown teams away. They have tend to win by under a touchdown more often than not anyway. So that's another reason for me taking this bet as well. So we've got 3 bets again on this one as well. We've got 1 unit on the Chiefs money line at minus 125. We've got half a unit on the Chiefs winning margin between 1 and 6, and that's at plus 310. And then we've got 1 unit on the Bills team total over 22.5 at minus 133. So there's my 6 plays. I am going to mention some fantasy suggestions before I go into a little recap of the plays from this week. So let's get into some fantasy football.
Fantasy football.
So the further and further we get into the playoffs, the harder and harder it is to pick a fantasy team, I believe. It's a tough week. There's only 4 teams playing that you don't get the depth of the player list to help. Essentially, you don't get a value player because everyone's realistically in line to play. Also, the captain selection is very slim this week. There's maybe 2 or 3 names you could decide, but ultimately the choice is pretty obvious. We'll start off with the captain suggestion. That's going to be Saquon Barkley, running back, and he is 8,200. I chose Barkley last week. He ended with 39.2 points, and obviously double that as his captain. That brought us 78.4 in total. I think that was my highest total of the year as well. He's going to be the main focus for the offense. The Eagles' offense runs through him. A bit of uncertainty through Hurts and how hurt he is. But he's going to get opportunities, and that's guaranteed. He's rushed for 25 and 26 attempts in both players' games. He ended his season with a 31 rushing attempt game and a 29 rushing attempt game, showing his workload is huge. He's also rushed for 100 plus in 8 straight, 13 times in total. He's added 17 total touchdowns. I don't really expect this to change this week, but obviously the downside for this is you've got to be prepared for a lot of other fantasy players to take Barkley as well. The quarterback suggestion I've got this week is Patrick Mahomes. He is 5,000. I took him last week, and although he didn't really play his best, he did play efficient, and he was just shy of 100 quarterback rating. He threw for 177 yards with a touchdown. He added 14 yards rushing, but this week is a huge test against the Bills. Patrick Mahomes has been historically good in the playoffs and against the Bills within the playoffs too. Win or go home situations are what Patrick steps up for. I believe he's got to contribute more in this game. He's also the cheapest starting quarterback on the board, so that could be classed as a slight value selection. I think most players are going to be leaning towards taking Jayden Daniels or Josh Allen this week with their dual threat ability and the fact that they're both underdogs as well. They'll have more chance to pass and things like that. But again, like I said, I don't think it'll be an easy win for the Chiefs. So I think Patrick's going to have a lot of opportunities to throw this ball, especially into the end zone and get his yardage. So he's my quarterback suggestion. Wide receiver selection is going to be Shakir, and he's 4,400. There's probably a lot of viable options this week in the wide receiver area. Terry McLaurin, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, you've got Amari Cooper, even sort of DeAndre Hopkins or Xavier Worthy. They could all have big games. There's a lot of players for a lot of teams. I was actually quite torn between all of these guys, but Shakir got the nod. Shakir is the Buffalo breakout star from last season. He's only improved this year. His numbers have been not doubled, but they've been increasing from sort of game to game. He's been really reliant. He catches 67% of targets. He's had 6 receptions in back-to-back playoff games as well, along with back-to-back 60-yard games. He's Allen's secret weapon, and with the Chiefs secondary not defending the pass very well, they average 140 and touchdown to the wide receiver position. I believe Shakir can have a good game, and again, I don't think the Chiefs are gonna win comfortably. I think both teams are going to be able to pass the ball quite often. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen will look for their star receivers to step up, and obviously Shakir, he was 6 receptions in back-to-back games, 60 yards in back-to-back games. He was a safety blanket, so I expect that to happen again this week. And then my final selection for this week is going to be the tight end position. That's going to be Travis Kelce. He's 5,000. Again, it could have gone to a few players. I was actually looking at Kelce and Zach Ertz. I think Zach Ertz in a revenge game is a good spot. I do believe he has a solid game against his former team, Eagles, but ultimately he can't go against the future Hall of Famer, Travis Kelce. This is another reason why I decided to go against taking Worthy or Hopkins in the wide receiver selection. In his day, Kelce's one of the best pass catchers in the league. He's had a mediocre year, but his first playoff game last week, he went for 117 and a touchdown, making that his first 100-yard game all year. Similar to Mahomes, Travis comes alive in the playoffs. I don't expect things to change this week. Mahomes is going to want to look for his safety blanket, which is Travis Kelce. And obviously Kelce's going to want to do whatever he can to try and help the Chiefs win this game. So the Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce connection will be back in full swing this weekend, and it's going to be in my fantasy team as well. So as always, I actually wish everyone luck in their DFS this weekend. If you're from the UK, I highly recommend using the UK's biggest and best DFS site/app for fantasy football, and that is Fantasy Game Day app. And if you head over there, use code ELITE at sign up, you'll get yourself 1 free entry, which is perfect timing to use for the Super Bowl. So just to break down in this episode all of my plays this week. I've got 1.5 units on the Commanders, team total over 19.5 at odds of minus 141. Half a unit on the Commanders money line at odds of plus 250. 1 unit on Jayden Daniels over 1.5 passing touchdowns at plus 120. 1 unit on the Chiefs money line at minus 125. Half a unit on the Chiefs to win by between 1 and 6 points at plus 310. 1 unit on the Bills, team total over 22.5 at minus 133. And then I've obviously got my 5 unit play as well. I have dropped hints throughout this episode. It's my biggest bet of the year, and obviously typically I tend to stick wagering units between 1 and 3 units, but I think this weekend is the time for a 5-unit play. I've got 2 great matchups where in hindsight all 4 of these teams could pick up the win. I'm going to be rolling with a 2-leg alternative line parlay across the 2 games. I have dropped the hints, like I said. If you do want to unlock this play, all you've got to do is go over to your streaming platforms, wherever you're listening to this now, or go over to my Twitter. You like the post, you comment POD, and then I will send you over the 5-unit play. It's literally that simple. So go ahead and unlock it. We'll lock in for this weekend. I'm going to sign off on this episode. I'll be back next week for the Super Bowl show. So good luck to everyone who's playing anything this weekend. Don't forget to follow, like, subscribe. It's all free. Share if you can. And yeah, let's lock in, and I'll catch you later.